Some countries build fighter jets with endless money. They have budgets bigger than a small nation's economy. The Americans, the Russians, they throw cash at a problem until it goes away. But then you have Sweden, a country known for sensible cars, flat-pack furniture, and a healthy dose of logic. They decided, back in the Cold War, that they needed a new jet. Not just any jet, mind you. They wanted one that could do everything. Fight other planes, bomb things on the ground, and spy on the neighbors. And they wanted to do it on a very, very tight budget. This was the birth of the JAS-39 Gripen, and honestly, nobody gave it much of a chance. The world looked at Sweden and chuckled. How could this small, neutral nation possibly compete with the might of the United States and the Soviet Union? The big boys were building enormous twin-engine monsters like the F-15 Eagle. These were jets designed to dominate the sky through sheer brute force and colossal power. The Swedish plan was different. They weren't aiming for the biggest or the fastest. They wanted something clever, something nimble and light. A jet that could operate from a simple stretch of road if the main airbase got turned into a crater. It was a brilliant idea, but to the rest of the world, it sounded like bringing a very sharp penknife to a gunfight. The design philosophy was pure Swedish genius, or so they hoped. While American jets needed a whole village of technicians and perfectly smooth, long runways, the Gripen was designed for hardship. It was meant to be refueled and rearmed in less than 10 minutes by a handful of conscripts who probably preferred assembling a Billy bookcase. This meant making it small, simple, and incredibly efficient. The Gripen was a single-engine jet, which immediately made it lighter and cheaper than its twin-engined rivals. But this also made people skeptical. Could a single engine truly provide the power and reliability needed to survive in a modern dogfight against the world's superpowers? So the stage was set for a classic underdog story. On one side, you had the giants of the aerospace world, with their colossal budgets and decades of experience building world-beating war machines. On the other, you had the Swedes, armed with a clever idea and a whole lot of ambition. They were betting that brains could beat brawn, that efficiency could triumph over excess. The project was hugely important for Sweden's independence and its aerospace industry. The pressure was immense. Failure wasn't just an option. To many outsiders, it seemed like the most likely outcome for this plucky little jet with big dreams. Just as things were getting started, disaster struck. And it wasn't a small, quiet disaster. It was a very public, very fiery one. In 1989, during a test flight, the first Gripen prototype crashed spectacularly on landing. The pilot survived, which was a miracle, but the plane was a wreck. The problem was traced to the jet's advanced fly-by-wire system, which was supposed to make it incredibly agile. Instead, it made the plane unstable and difficult to control. The critics immediately pounced. "See," they said, "the Swedes are trying to be too clever for their own good. This is what happens when you try to build a supercar on a family hatchback budget." The project's future hung by a thread. If one crash wasn't bad enough, it happened again. In 1993, during a public airshow in Stockholm, another Gripen went down. This time, it was in front of thousands of spectators, including the royal family. The pilot thankfully ejected safely, but the image of the brand new fighter tumbling out of the sky and bursting into flames was a public relations nightmare. The problem, again, was the flight control software. The jet was so aerodynamically twitchy, which is what makes it so agile, that the computer couldn't keep up. The media had a field day. The project was labeled a failure, a waste of taxpayers' money, and a national embarrassment. Political support began to evaporate faster than fuel from a leaky tank. The political challenges were just as fierce as the technical ones. Other countries, particularly the United States, were keen to sell their own jets, like the F-16 and F/A-18. They had powerful lobbying machines and decades of established relationships. For a small nation like Sweden, breaking into this market was like a new local pub trying to compete with a global chain. Every potential sale turned into a huge political battle. The crashes gave these competitors the perfect ammunition. They could point to the Gripen's troubled development and whisper doubts into the ears of foreign governments, suggesting their own proven, reliable aircraft were the safer bet. Saab and the Swedish government were now in a fight for survival. The team of engineers had to go back to the drawing board, not to redesign the plane, but to perfect the millions of lines of code that controlled it. They had to prove that the fundamental concept was sound, even if the execution had stumbled. They worked relentlessly, knowing that one more major setback could kill the Gripen project for good. The pressure from the public, the politicians, and the watching world was immense. It was a moment of truth. Either they fixed the problem and proved everyone wrong, or the Gripen would become nothing more than a footnote in aviation history. Faced with utter ruin, the Saab engineers did what Swedes do best. They calmly and methodically fixed the problem. They didn't panic. They didn't make excuses. They spent hundreds of thousands of hours refining the fly-by-wire software, turning the jet's greatest weakness into its ultimate strength. They tinkered and tested until the system was flawless. When the improved Gripen took to the skies again, it was a completely different beast. It was now incredibly stable, yet astonishingly agile, capable of performing maneuvers that would make other pilots dizzy. The team hadn't just saved the project. They had created a masterpiece of software engineering that was years ahead of its time. What makes the Gripen so special today is not just its speed or its weapons, but its brain. The jet is essentially a flying supercomputer. It has a highly advanced data link system that allows a group of Gripens to share information in real time. One Gripen can spot a target on its radar and instantly send that data to another Gripen flying in silent mode miles away. This means the enemy never sees the jet that fires the missile. It's a level of teamwork and situational awareness that bigger, more expensive jets struggle to match. It's not about having the most powerful radar. It's about using the information from all radars in the cleverest way possible. A wolf pack is always more dangerous than a lone wolf. Then there's the cost. Oh yes, the cost. In a world where top-tier fighter jets can cost over $100 million per plane, the Gripen is a staggering bargain. More importantly, it's cheap to fly. The cost per flight hour for a Gripen is a fraction of what it costs to operate a beast like the F-35 or the Eurofighter Typhoon. For countries without a bottomless pit of money, this is a game-changer. It means they can afford to buy more jets, and crucially, fly them more often. A pilot with 200 hours of training in a Gripen is far deadlier than a pilot with 50 hours in a supposedly superior jet that sits in the hangar because it's too expensive to run. This combination of low-cost, high-tech brains and operational flexibility is Gripen's secret weapon. It doesn't need a five-star hotel of an airbase. It can land on a motorway, get refueled by a small crew with a truck, and be back in the air before the enemy has finished their coffee. This is something the heavyweight American and European jets simply cannot do. They are like Formula One cars that need a perfect track and a huge pit crew. The Gripen, on the other hand, is like a world rally car. It's built to perform brilliantly in the messy, unpredictable real world, making it the perfect choice for nations that need a robust and adaptable defense. The ultimate test for any fighter jet is not on paper. It's in the air, against its rivals. And this is where the Gripen truly began to shine. In numerous international training exercises, the underestimated Swedish jet started to build a fearsome reputation. During a red flag exercise in Alaska, one of the world's most challenging aerial combat simulations, Gripens flown by Swedish pilots consistently achieved stunning results. They went up against American F-16s, F-15s, and even the invincible F-22 Raptor. Using their superior data links and clever tactics, the Gripen pilots often scored simulated kills against these more powerful and vastly more expensive aircraft, leaving a lot of stunned American pilots in their wake. One famous example came from an exercise where a Gripen was pitted against the Eurofighter Typhoon, a twin-engine beast built by a consortium of European giants. On paper, the Typhoon should have dominated. It's bigger, more powerful, and has a larger radar. However, in close-quarters dogfights, the Gripen's agility and small size made it an incredibly difficult target. The Typhoon pilots found that the nimble Swede could turn tighter and get into a firing position faster. It was a classic case of David versus Goliath, and David was landing some serious blows. These successes weren't flukes. They were proof that the Swedish design philosophy actually worked in practice. These victories in simulated combat translated into real-world sales. Countries like South Africa, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Thailand, and Brazil all chose the Gripen. They saw a jet that offered 80% of the capability of the top-tier fighters for 20% of the cost. For them, it was a no-brainer. They got a modern, multi-role fighter that was affordable, easy to maintain, and could stand its ground against its neighbors' more traditional air forces. Sweden had successfully carved out a niche for itself, selling not just a plane, but a smart, complete defense system. The Gripen had become the thinking person's fighter jet. From its disastrous, fiery beginnings, the Gripen has transformed into one of the most respected fighter jets on the planet. It proved that you don't need a superpower's budget to build a world-class aircraft. Through clever design, relentless problem-solving, and a focus on efficiency and intelligence over brute force, Saab created a true giant slayer. Today, the Gripen stands as a testament to Swedish engineering and a powerful symbol of how an underdog with enough ingenuity and determination can not only compete with the big boys, but can also, on its day, beat them. It's a remarkable story of success against all odds.